She was hired to pretend to love a billionaire for 3 days, but he ended up loving her forever. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have one small request. Please click the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you will not miss our newest videos. It only takes a second, it is completely free, and it is the best way to support us in bringing you more heartfelt, meaningful stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Tell us your city or country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive with fireworks. It begins with a business proposal. Let us return to our main character. Boston. A cold autumn afternoon. The skyline stretches beneath gray clouds, glass towers gleaming like they're carved from ice. Ethan Ward stands before the window of his 52nd floor office silent, unreadable. The city hums far below, but his world moves in algorithms and numbers. On the polished desk rests a white envelope, his sister's wedding invitation. He flips it open again, though he already knows every word by heart. Sophia Ward and Daniel Brooks request the honor of your presence. He exhales, a soft, humorless sound. 3 days in California, he murmurs. 3 days of relatives, asking when I'll fall in love. I'd rather face investors. Across from him, Clara, his assistant for 8 years, hides a smile behind her tablet. Or, she says lightly, you could skip the awkwardness. Bring someone. He arches a brow. Someone? A companion, Clara continues, choosing her words carefully. Not a real girlfriend, just someone who can pretend well enough to quiet the questions. He stares at her, the idea hanging in the air like dust, caught in sunlight. You're suggesting I hire an actress? Not exactly, she replies, closing her tablet. Someone poised, smart, kind enough to convince your sister you're not a lost cause. Ethan's lips twitch, almost a smile. Almost. I build neural networks, Clara, not fairy tales. And yet, she says softly, every investor loves a good story. He looks back toward the window. The reflection staring at him isn't the confident CEO the press worships. It's a man who hasn't let anyone close enough to matter. His relationships are scheduled like meetings, his life a checklist of quarterly targets. He taps the edge of the wedding card. 3 days, he repeats. That's all it is. 3 days, Clara confirms. Just enough time to look convincingly in love. The silence between them stretches, filled with the hum of the city. Then, finally, he nods, once decisive, detached. Find someone who understands rules. I don't need emotion, I need efficiency. Clara studies him a moment longer, something almost like pity flickering behind her eyes. Understood, she says quietly. But you might discover emotions aren't as inefficient as you think. When she leaves, Ethan lingers by the window. Outside, the first flakes of early snow drift through the city, soft, slow, uninvited. He watches them fall, unaware that a single decision, made in the name of convenience, will unravel the one thing he's never been able to quantify. His reflection fades against the glass, replaced by the faint glow of his computer screen, a blinking cursor waiting for his next move. He finally sits, opens a blank email, and types 4 words that will change everything. Find me someone believable. The city lights shimmer below, as if nodding to a story already in motion, one written not in data, but in the fragile warmth of what's real. Brooklyn, late afternoon. The rain has just stopped, leaving the streets glazed in gold and puddles that mirror the skyline. Inside a cramped but charming studio, Harper Ellis leans over her laptop, eyes tired, invoices piling beside an untouched cup of tea. Her phone buzzes. Unknown number. She hesitates before answering. Harper Ellis speaking. A calm voice replies, measured, professional. This is Clara Jensen. I represent a private client who's looking for a temporary engagement, a social arrangement, not business. 3 days, in California. Compensation, $20,000. Harper laughs softly. Sorry, did you just say engagement? Clara pauses, then clarifies. He needs a date for his sister's wedding. Someone polished, confident, able to play the role of a girlfriend without emotional involvement. Okay. Harper leans back, half amused, half stunned. So, pretend to be in love with a stranger? If you prefer a simpler description, yes. She looks around her studio, half-finished floral sketches, bills scattered like fallen petals. The last client had canceled their event, blaming budget cuts. Her rent was due in 4 days. "Who is he?" Harper asks, voice steadier now. Clara answers without hesitation. "Ethan Ward, founder of Ward Technologies." Harper blinks. The name rings faintly familiar. She's seen it in news articles, next to phrases like billion-dollar valuation and AI revolution. "Why me?" "You were recommended. You know how to carry yourself, and you understand appearances." Harper lets out a breath that feels heavier than it should. 3 days, she repeats quietly, "and I just have to look like I'm in love." "That's all," Clara replies. "No real feelings required." The silence that follows feels like a question she can't quite answer. Then Harper smiles, small and wry. Real feelings are expensive anyway. She looks out the window, the city lights blur through the damp glass, soft and uncertain. Her voice drops to a whisper. "All right, Clara, tell your client." He's found his actress. When the call ends, Harper sets her phone down beside her sketchbook. For a moment, she stares at a half-drawn archway of roses, the kind she used to design for real weddings. The irony isn't lost on her. She closes the book gently and murmurs to herself, 3 days, just 3 days. Outside, the city hums on, unaware that one small decision made out of necessity has already begun to rewrite the meaning of love. The elevator doors open to a hush of glass and light. Harper steps out, heels clicking against the marble floor. The office looks less like a workplace and more like a living organism, walls alive with data, numbers pulsing across transparent screens. At the far end, Ethan Ward stands before the window, a sharp silhouette against the skyline. He doesn't turn immediately, just says, calm and clipped, "You're punctual. That's a good start." Harper offers a polite smile. "I figured it's best to impress the boss on day 1 of pretending to be his girlfriend." "Oh." That earns her the smallest reaction, a raised brow, almost amusement. He gestures to the seat across from his desk. "Let's make this clear," he says. "This is an arrangement, not a relationship." She sits, crossing one leg over the other. "Noted. I just need to know if this role comes with a happy ending or if we cut to credits after 3 days." Ethan blinks, and for the first time, a low laugh escapes him. It's quick, almost reluctant, as if laughter isn't something he allows himself often. "I don't recall hiring a comedian," he murmurs. "You didn't," she says. "But if we're going to convince people we're in love, you might need one." He studies her across the table, the confidence, the spark that refuses to bend under his gaze. She isn't intimidated by the city view or the weight of his name. If anything, she seems amused by it. "There's no contract to sign," he says, finally, sliding his phone toward her. "The payment has been transferred. Half now, half after the weekend." Harper glances at her screen, her bank balance refreshes, numbers shifting like a small miracle. "That's fast," she says, surprised. "I don't waste time on paperwork when trust is faster." She tilts her head, eyes warm but curious. "Is that your business strategy or your dating philosophy?" His lips twitch. "Both." "Oh." They go over the details: flight tomorrow morning, rehearsal dinner the first night, wedding the second. He lists the rules with precision, like setting the parameters of a system. No real attachment, no physical affection beyond what's necessary, no crossing boundaries. She listens quietly, then nods. Understood. But inside, her thoughts whisper otherwise. Boundaries sound easy when you've never felt them shift. Before leaving, she glances around the office, a space so controlled, so polished, it almost feels sterile. "You know," she says softly, "for a man who builds intelligence, your office could use a little soul." He looks at her, puzzled. "Soul?" "Color, warmth, something real. Numbers don't hug you back, Mr. Ward." He doesn't respond, but something flickers in his eyes, like she just said something he didn't know he needed to hear. As she turns to leave, he says, "Harper." "Ok." She pauses at the door. "Why did you take this job?" She smiles, honest and unguarded. "Because my studio is drowning, and I'm not too proud to swim with strangers if it keeps it afloat." Ethan nods slowly, as if committing that honesty to memory. "Then let's make sure this weekend is worth the effort." She steps into the elevator, the doors sliding shut between them. Her reflection glimmers on the glass, half amusement, half disbelief. 3 days, she whispers under her breath, and he already makes rules like someone who's afraid to break them. The elevator descends, the city lights flickering through the glass. Somewhere between logic and impulse, a boundary already begins to move. California glowed beneath a late afternoon sun, the vineyards stretching like green rivers down the valley of Sonoma. The car rolled up the gravel path toward the Ward family estate, white stone, glass, and ivy, the kind of house that made silence feel expensive. Harper stepped out first. The wind caught the hem of her dress, and for a moment she just looked. "It's beautiful," she murmured. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks, every gesture measured. "It's presentable," he said. She smiled. "You really can't compliment anything without turning it into a quarterly report, can you?" He glanced at her, almost amused. "I'll try harder." Inside, laughter spilled through the marble foyer. Sophia Ward, all warmth and sunshine, ran straight toward them. "Finally, my brother brought someone," she cried, pulling Harper into an embrace before the poor woman could react. "I was beginning to think he only loved algorithms." Harper laughed, surprised by the genuine affection. "I promise I'm real. Flesh, coffee, and sarcasm." Sophia grinned. "I like her already." Then she turned to her brother. "You see, it wasn't that hard to find someone wonderful." Ethan shot Harper a quick look, the faintest curve appearing at his lips. To keep up the act, he reached for her hand, their fingers brushing, then resting naturally together. For a second, his expression softened. Dinner that evening was long and lavish. The family gathered around a table lined with candles, silverware gleaming under soft light. Harper sat beside Ethan, doing her best to remember names and stories. She laughed when Sophia told childhood tales, and even drew a reluctant smile from their father with a quip about tech billionaires and human emotions. Then someone asked the question she dreaded. "So, how did you two meet?" Harper froze, glancing at Ethan for help. He didn't miss a beat. "At an art exhibition," he said smoothly. "She told me the piece I liked was terrible." The table erupted in laughter. "And you still called her after that?" Sophia teased. Ethan's gaze slid toward Harper. "I like people who tell the truth." It was supposed to be a line, but his tone carried something quieter, something real. Harper felt it, deep in her chest, and had to look away before anyone noticed. After dinner, she slipped outside to the terrace for air. The vineyards glowed under fairy lights, the night hummed softly with crickets and the faint echo of jazz from inside. She leaned against the railing, exhaling. For a moment, she let herself stop performing. Footsteps approached. Ethan joined her, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed for once. "You handled them well," he said. "I didn't trip or spill wine. That's progress." He smiled faintly. "You're a quick study." "Thank you, Mr. Ward." That almost sounded like praise. It was. His tone softened. "You looked like you belonged in there." Harper glanced up at him, surprised. "That's funny. I felt like I was playing a role I hadn't rehearsed." He looked at her, the candlelight from the window catching in his eyes. "You make it convincing." A pause. Neither of them looked away. "Careful," she whispered. "You're starting to sound like you believe it." His reply was quiet, nearly lost to the night. "Maybe I do." The words hung between them, too delicate to touch. From inside, Sophia's laughter echoed through the open door, calling them back to the crowd and the safety of pretense. Harper turned first, breaking the spell. "Come on, Mr. Efficiency. Let's not make them suspicious." "Oh." Ethan followed her inside, his gaze still caught on the space where she'd been standing. And for the first time, he realized the line between acting and feeling had started to shift, and he wasn't sure he wanted it to stop. Morning light spilled over the rolling vineyards of Sonoma, brushing the leaves in gold. The air was soft with the scent of grapes and dew. Harper walked ahead, her sundress catching the breeze, fingertips grazing the vines as if she were greeting them. Ethan followed a few steps behind, calm and precise as always, eyes scanning the land like another data set waiting to be understood. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Harper said, turning slightly, her hair haloed by sunlight. He studied the view. "It's efficient," he replied. "The irrigation, the yield per acre, the symmetry, it's all optimized." She gave a quiet laugh. "You just managed to make romance sound like a spreadsheet." His mouth curved, barely. "And you make chaos sound poetic." "Maybe that's because it is," she said. "Not everything worth feeling can be measured." He looked at her, the wind teasing the corner of her scarf. Emotions make people lose control. Harper smiled softly. Or maybe control makes people forget how to feel. For once, he had no quick answer. The silence between them hummed alive, charged but gentle. They kept walking, the conversation drifting to safer places. She told him about the tiny design studio she built from nothing, about the color palettes that made her happy. He spoke of algorithms, of patterns in human behavior. But somewhere between her laughter and his low replies, the boundary between acting and being began to blur. At the vineyard terrace, they stopped for lunch beneath a canopy of olive trees. Glasses clinked, sunlight scattered across the table. She reached for a slice of bread at the same moment he did. Their hands brushed, and neither pulled away right away. "You see," she said, teasing lightly, "you're not entirely made of logic." He arched an eyebrow. "Don't test the hypothesis, Miss Ellis." "I already am," she said, her grin warm and disarming. That evening, as the sky dimmed into a watercolor of amber and violet, Harper wandered down toward the lake behind the estate. Fireflies blinked over the water. The reflection of the house shimmered like a dream. She didn't hear Ethan approach until his voice broke the quiet. "You disappeared," he said, his tone softer than usual. "Just needed a little quiet," she replied. "Too many polite questions about our fake love story." He almost smiled. "We're convincing them, though." "Maybe too much," she said. He hesitated, then held out a hand. "Dance with me." Harper blinked. "Here? There's no music. Then we'll make our own." "Ah." She laughed, but she took his hand. His fingers were warm, sure, the kind that could lead without demanding. They moved slowly, the sound of water lapping against the shore their only rhythm. At first, it was a game, another act in their shared pretense. But the longer they moved, the more real it felt. Her breath matched his. Her heart didn't listen to reason. He looked down at her, voice low. "You really believe in this? Feeling stuff, don't you?" "I design weddings for a living," she said softly. "If I don't believe in love, I might as well pack up my studio." "Love doesn't last," he murmured. "Neither does data," she countered, smiling. "But we still keep collecting it." Ethan stopped moving. For a long moment, he just stared at her, his expression unreadable, caught between resistance and surrender. "You think I've never been in love," he said finally. "I think you've never let yourself," she whispered. The words lingered between them, fragile and dangerous. His thumb brushed the edge of her hand, an accident. Or maybe not. When the moment grew too close, he looked away, clearing his throat. "We should get back. It's getting late." She nodded, though neither moved right away. As they walked back up the path, their shoulders nearly touched but didn't. Every step felt like a choice not to say something they both already knew. Later that night, Harper sat by her bedroom window, sketching the lake, the vines, and two shadows dancing under starlight. Her pencil trembled, tracing shapes that felt too intimate to finish. Across the hall, Ethan stood on his balcony, hands braced against the railing, eyes fixed on the same stars. He thought about the way she laughed, unfiltered, alive, and how it slipped past his guard before he could stop it. Down below, the lights from the vineyard flickered like small heartbeats in the dark. She whispered to herself, voice barely a breath. "You wanted a performance, Ethan Ward, but I think I forgot where the script ends." And somewhere in the quiet, he thought the same thing, though neither of them would admit it just yet. The rehearsal dinner shimmered under strings of golden light, the air rich with laughter and the scent of wine. Harper sat beside Ethan, her hand resting on his arm as guests toasted around them. It almost felt real, too real. The warmth of his voice, the way he leaned toward her when he spoke, it all blurred the edges between their act and whatever had begun to live beneath it. Then a familiar voice sliced through the noise. "Ethan Ward," she said smoothly. "You never mentioned you were bringing someone." Heads turned. Victoria Hale, elegant, sharp, the kind of woman whose presence demanded attention, stood at the end of the table. Her eyes flicked to Harper, assessing, calculating, then back to Ethan. "Victoria," he said quietly, his tone unreadable. "It's been a while." "Indeed," she replied, her smile thin. "I must say, it's fascinating to see you with someone, especially since last month you told me love was a concept invented to sell jewelry." The laughter around the table stilled. Glasses paused mid-air. Harper's breath caught. She looked at him, searching his face for denial, for anything. But Ethan didn't speak. The silence stretched 1 beat, 2, 3, until it became an answer. Victoria's smile widened just enough to wound. Well, maybe you've changed. She turned away, leaving the damage behind. The conversation limped forward, forced and brittle. Harper sat frozen, her pulse thudding in her ears. The candlelight blurred, her throat burned with something she didn't want to name. When Ethan finally reached for her hand under the table, she pulled away gently, her voice soft but final. "Excuse me." She left before he could stand. Outside, rain had begun to fall thin, silver threads against the vineyard. She walked past the rows of cars, past the glow of the house, until she reached the edge of the field. The sound of the rain drowned out everything else. Ethan caught up moments later, his shoes sinking into wet earth. "Harper!" he called, breath uneven. She didn't turn. "Go back inside, Ethan. They're probably waiting for the perfect couple." He stopped a few feet behind her. "She was someone I worked with. It was years ago." "Years ago?" Her voice trembled. "You didn't deny it. You just let her say it like it meant nothing." "It didn't mean nothing," he said quickly. "It meant—" He stopped, realizing he didn't have a word that would fix it. Harper turned, rain streaking down her cheeks. "You don't owe me an explanation. We're not real, remember? This was business. That's not what I—" "Then what is it?" she asked, her tone breaking. "Because somewhere between your rules and my pretending, I started feeling something. And that's on me. I should have known better." He stepped closer, voice raw. "Harper, everything you've seen, none of it was fake to me." "Ouch," she shook her head. "If that were true, you wouldn't have gone silent when she said it." For a long moment, neither moved. The rain fell harder, cold and clean, washing the last pretense between them. Finally she whispered, "You can't calculate your way into love, Ethan. And you can't stay silent when it finds you." "Oh." Then she turned and walked away, leaving him standing there beneath the vineyard lights, the man who built his life on certainty, now watching the one thing real slip out of reach. And for the first time in years, he didn't know how to fix it. The rain hadn't stopped all night. It whispered against the glass walls of the estate, a steady reminder of what had been said and what hadn't. Ethan stood by the window, his reflection pale in the dim light. He hadn't slept. His mind replayed every word Harper said, every look she gave before walking away. He'd spent years mastering control of markets, of people, of outcomes. But this feeling was chaos. It was uncalculated, uncontrollable, and painfully alive. He thought of her laughter under the olive trees, of the way she saw beauty in imperfection. In 2 days, she had undone everything he believed about himself. When dawn finally broke, the sky was a quiet gray. He poured 2 cups of coffee, black and strong, and walked down the hall to her room. His heartbeat sounded louder than his footsteps. He knocked once. "Harper." There was a pause before the door opened. She stood there in a loose sweater, her hair still damp from the rain. Her eyes were tired, guarded. "I brought coffee," he said softly. "A peace offering." She didn't take it. "You didn't have to." "I know," he said, and set the cup on the small table by the door. "But I wanted to." Silence filled the space between them. He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, his voice faltered. "I was wrong," he began. "Victoria, she's just a chapter I closed a long time ago. But when I saw you last night, when I saw you cry, something in me—" He drew a shaky breath. "Something in me broke." Her eyes flickered, unsure. "Ethan," he stepped closer, careful, afraid of saying too much and not enough. "I used to think love was an equation that never balanced, that it was something weak, something that distracted people from what mattered. But when you walked out that door, I realized I'd rather lose everything I built than lose the chance to tell you the truth." She looked down, her voice trembling. "Don't say things you'll regret when this is over." "I won't," he said, "because I've never meant anything more. I can't explain it, Harper, but you." She cut him off, her tone gentle but aching. "Please, don't make this harder than it already is." "Ardex," he exhaled, frustration and tenderness tangled together. "Why are you always running from what's real?" "Because it's not real," she said, turning away. "None of this was supposed to be. There's a contract, Ethan. 3 days, remember? He closed his eyes for a moment. Then consider this the part where I break the rules. She froze. He went on, quietly now, almost pleading. You told me once that emotions make people human. Maybe I'm finally starting to believe you. Harper's throat tightened. Don't do this. I have to, he said. Because for the first time in my life, I'm afraid not of losing a deal, not of failure, but of losing you. Her eyes glistened, but she forced a small smile. You'll be fine. You always are. He shook his head. Not this time. The silence between them stretched thin, trembling. She reached for the cup of coffee, her fingers brushing his for a second, long enough for both of them to feel what words couldn't say. Then she stepped back, her voice barely a whisper. We both knew how this ends. He nodded slowly, his expression breaking. Maybe you did. I didn't. Harper closed the door gently, leaving him standing there in the hallway, a man who once built his empire on certainty, now learning how fragile truth could be when it came from the heart. Outside, the rain began to ease, but the air still carried the weight of something unfinished, something that refused to let either of them go. The wedding took place beneath a canopy of white roses, their petals trembling in the soft California breeze. The afternoon sun dipped low over the vineyard, scattering light across rows of chairs and faces filled with joy. Harper sat beside Ethan, her hands folded in her lap, trying to steady her breath. Sophia stood beneath the floral arch, radiant in lace, her groom's hand trembling in hers. The officiant smiled kindly as he spoke. Love, he said, is the courage to trust again, even when the heart remembers its fears. The words sank into Harper like a quiet ache. Beside her, Ethan shifted, glancing her way. Without thinking, he reached for her hand. His fingers wrapped around hers, a gesture small but startlingly intimate. For a heartbeat, she froze. Then she let her hand stay, her pulse echoing his. When the vows ended and applause rose, Harper clapped along, smiling faintly. But her chest felt tight. Because somewhere deep inside, she already knew this was no longer just an act. That evening, the vineyard was transformed, lanterns strung between the olive trees, laughter spilling over music. Guests swirled across the dance floor, wine glasses glinting in the golden light. Ethan and Harper stood at the edge for a long moment before he offered his hand. Dance with me? He asked. She hesitated. Do you ever get tired of pretending? Only when it starts to feel real, he said softly. Something in his tone made her chest flutter. She took his hand. Under the pale glow of the lights, they moved slowly. His hand rested lightly on her back, guiding her through the rhythm. Her cheek brushed his shoulder. His breath lingered near her hair. For a few fragile minutes, there was no audience, no contract, only the sound of their hearts trying to remember what truth felt like. He bent closer, his voice low. I meant what I said yesterday, about being afraid to lose you. She looked up at him, eyes wide. You can't lose what you never had. He started to speak again, but the music faltered. A familiar, clipped voice sliced through the hum of conversation. Well, Victoria Hale said, stepping into the circle of light. This is touching. Truly. Tell me, Harper, how much does he pay you to look at him like that? The words hit like a spark dropped into still air. The room fell silent. Harper froze, every eye turning toward her. Ethan's hand stiffened in hers. Victoria smiled, not kind, not curious, but triumphant. For a moment, Harper wanted to run. Then something steadier rose in her chest. She let go of Ethan's hand and turned toward the room. You're right, she said clearly. He did hire me. To pretend, to smile at dinners, to make his family believe in something that wasn't real. Gasps rippled across the guests. Sophia's face paled. Ethan opened his mouth, but she continued. But what no one paid me for, what no one could, was the part where I stopped pretending. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the music seemed to fade. She looked at Ethan, tears brimming but voice calm. I didn't mean to fall for you. But I did. And that's not part of the job. He took a step forward. Harper, don't, she whispered. You wanted truth. There it is. Her voice trembled once, then steadied. Maybe you'll find someone easier to believe in. Someone less inconvenient. She turned and walked away, her dress brushing the floor, the soft scent of white roses lingering as she passed. Behind her, Ethan stood motionless in the middle of the crowd, a man surrounded by everything money could buy, and suddenly aware of the one thing it never could. The lights gleamed gold around him, but they felt colder than ever. The night air shimmered with gold as Harper walked out of the garden, her steps quick but unsteady. The music from the wedding drifted faintly behind her, a love song meant for someone else. Lanterns swayed in the wind, scattering light across the path, and for a moment, she let herself believe this was how all stories ended, quietly, halfway between truth and heartbreak. But then she heard her name. Harper. Ethan's voice rough, desperate, real. She didn't turn, not at first. "Go back, Ethan. Your guests are waiting." "Let them wait," he said, breathless as he caught up to her. "I can't let you leave like this." She turned then, eyes shining in the dim light. "Why? So we can pretend one last time?" He shook his head, stepping closer. "No, there's no pretending anymore. No contracts, no rules, just me." Her heart twisted. "You said that before, and then you let the silence speak for you." "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid of saying it and losing everything I thought mattered. But I already did, the moment you walked away." "Oh." She stared at him, torn between anger and something softer. "You really think words can fix this?" "No," he said quietly. "But maybe love can." The wind lifted her hair, carrying the scent of roses between them. For a long time, neither moved. "Harper," he said finally, his voice trembling. "I've built a life around numbers, deals, and logic. And in 3 days, you managed to make me believe in something I can't measure." Her lips parted, but no sound came. He reached for her hand, fingers warm and certain. "Don't go. Not because of the contract, because of me. Because what I feel for you is the only real thing that came out of all this." She blinked, tears catching in the corners of her eyes. "Are you sure, Ethan? Sure it's not just guilt? Or habit?" He smiled faintly, shaking his head. "I'm sure. Surer than any deal I've ever made." A small, trembling laugh escaped her. "That's the most uncalculated thing you've ever said." Sit. "Good," he whispered. "Because for once, I don't want to calculate. I just want to choose." She took a step forward, closing the space between them. The lantern light washed over their faces, soft and golden. "Then promise me," she said quietly. "If we do this, we do it without plans, without logic." His voice deepened, breaking through the hush of the night. "Then let this be the first truth I've ever spoken without hesitation. Harper, I love you." "Oh." Her eyes filled again, but this time the tears came with a smile. He brushed them away with his thumb, his touch gentle, reverent. The music from inside swelled again, the same song, but slower, sweeter. Harper leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. His arms circled her, holding on as if he'd finally found the one thing that didn't need proof. For the first time, neither of them was acting. The light flickered across the garden, painting them in warmth and quiet promise. The world outside still turned, but for one perfect moment, they were still two souls who had stopped pretending. Because sometimes, love doesn't need forever to be true. It only needs the courage to begin. Thank you for watching. For more stories where hearts heal and love finds its truth, stay with us in Valen Stories, where power learns to love again.